So this is the mesh singlet that somebody asked me if I had. Yes, I have it. I'm wearing it today for you guys. Now, talking about what we're doing tonight. First, we're going to do roast veggies as part of our root vegetables specifically for our side dish. So I've got rosemary, I've got pineapple sage on the bottom here, and I've got some thyme on top. I just forgot to put the thyme on the bottom, which is where I would want those herbs to kind of filter upward. As far as my root vegetables go, I've got turnips in here, I've got parsnips, I've got rutabaga, I've got beets. For me, like the beets are like kind of my favorite part about this. I've got carrots. If I had more space in here, I put in some fingerling potatoes and that type of thing. And you can see everything's probably about 3/4 of an inch squared on average. And some things, you know, you want to have them, this one's a little bit smaller because it's the end of the parsnip, but you want everything to be roughly the same size so that it all kind of cooks evenly. You can put salt in the bottom here. If you do, of course, you're increasing the sodium content, but it's going to soak up a lot more of that moisture and help it out a little bit. I choose not to because, again, I try to stay low on sodium as much as I can. So there's no oil on this. A lot of guys and a lot of people I've known like to put oil on roasted vegetables, and I think you can get away with it a little bit more when it comes to root vegetables, but you do it with like broccoli, you do it, it's okay with Brussels sprouts to an extent, but it really, to me, it brings out the worst flavors of those, so you get kind of that overcooked broccoli flavor when you do that, and it's just really disgusting to me. So I never, unless I'm doing like kind of like a French fry without a deep fryer, I will bake after rolling my potatoes in oil. Now, I'm just going to cover this up with aluminum foil, and I'm going to throw it in at 425 for about 35 to 45 minutes, somewhere in that ballpark. And I'm putting it over on one side because I'm going to be using that again later. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn on my back burner here and let that pan come up to heat. Again, what we want to see, guys, we don't want to be able to smell the avocado oil coming up. What we want is this to be hot, and you see that this gut has legs, right? Like you're looking at wine. The oil doesn't want to move around too much, and I don't have too much oil in there. There's probably a little bit more than I'd want, but we're going to live with it for today. Now, in the back burner here, I'm going to turn this up as well. I'm going to put in about 8 ounces, well, a cup of water here, and I'm going to take about a teaspoon or so of vegetable stock. So this company has actually redone their vegetable stock, so or their better than bouillon, same kind of idea, and it no longer contains MSG. So lovely. Not that MSG is particularly bad for you, but it does have a bad reputation, which is actually rooted more in racism than anything else. So, fun fact. It is harmful in large doses. Now, over here I've got some more thyme. We're going to be using that. I'm going to be throwing that in the pan about the same time I throw in my chicken. I'm using Cheater's garlic. Now, the original recipe calls for shallots. I do have shallots over there, but I have this onion already half cut up, so I'm going to go ahead and just use kind of a yellow onion. These are shiitake mushrooms. The original recipe does not call for that. I have brandy. This is actually cognac, but I don't actually drink it very often, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. Pepper, salt, and that sort of thing. So, and yeah, I mentioned butter already. So I'm starting to see that this viscosity is starting to get a little bit better. Now over here I've got my chicken. Unfortunately it was a little bit frostbitten, but whatever, we'll live. But it's already defrosted, right? And preferably, like, you either want to use, well, for this particular recipe, like, skin on is better, but I don't have any at the moment. But you want it to use never frozen chicken if you can help it. This was frozen, obviously, because it got frostbite. But the ways that you're going to defrost this is you're going to put it under into a bowl and put it under cold running water. You can just have it as a little bit of a drizzle. That's not to stop it from, or it's not supposed to make it warmer. It's actually meant to stop it from getting too warm, right? While it's defrosting. Usually it's going to take about half an hour to an hour to do so. Otherwise, you can also do it in the microwave. I did kind of have to cheat tonight and do that a little bit because it was taking way too long. So when I drop this in, you can hear it's starting to make a little bit of a sound here, right? So that's what tells us that we're ready. And I know I'm touching my herbs after touching chicken, but they're just going to go right there in the pan. Take that off. So couple sprigs there in the pan just to give it some aromatic. I just touched chicken, so I'm going to go ahead and wash my hands really quick. This is a good habit. Always wash your hands after touching chicken. Preferably for 2 happy birthdays or so. I want to cut a little bit short just now. I'm going to keep this nearby because I'm going to use it. And now, this dish tends to become a little bit on the saltier side, so I'm not going to add salt right now, but I could add pepper, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. That spoon's just going to get lost. Alright, so I've already pre-ground this, I'm going to go ahead and toss that in there a little bit. Nice. It's going to burn up the whole house. Now, I have a baking sheet right here, or a pie pan or whatever, just to throw this in the oven. Normally, like if I'm going to be doing a steak or a pork chop or anything, I have my pan is an all-metal handle pan. This pan can go into the oven, which is one of the main features of this particular pan. So I'm just kind of giving these a little bit of a cooking on the outside. I don't need to go like super heavy with that. And this guy here, take some of that, put it right back on top there, trying to keep all that moisture in, get some more of that herb flavor in here. Now that looks like that ooh, coming off that spoon pretty well. I have water spoons that won't do this. That's probably good enough. Alright. Yeah. Just keep kind of spooning this on. It's going to help more of that herb flavor kind of get in there a little bit more. Check the other side of this. So once that's done, it's fine. I don't have to keep it going. You could use a canned like chicken broth or vegetable broth or whatever. A lot of pepper on that one, so I'm going to move it around a little bit better. Yeah. So we're starting to look okay here. So, now that I've kind of sealed the outside so the juice to stay in, I'm going to go ahead and pop that in the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes. And I'm going to take these guys, I'm going to move them off here. Alright. Alright. And take out all the extra fat there. I want to keep some of that in there, but what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to be working on kind of deglazing the pan and all that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my onions in there. I'm going to move them around a bit. And then you're going to start taking up some of this like chicken outside here and chicken fat, and it's going to start to absorb some of that. Stay in the damn pan. Now normally, like, if I was using shallots, I'd want to keep these in like rings or something like that, just so that I have a little bit more shape, but for tonight, it's alright. Yeah, I'm going to add a little bit of butter to that. Just about, that's about a half tablespoon or so. I want to be careful, I don't really want to burn my onions here. Oh, I am sucking with this tonight. Woohoo! Alright. Well, once I've got them starting to caramelize a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take some brandy. Now, I haven't had it happen yet, but a lot of times when you toss brandy into a hot pan like this, it's going to throw up flame. So, if it does, really what you do when it does that is you just stay calm, right? It's not going to harm anything. It's actually perfectly fine. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and what you're going to find after you do that is that chicken fat that was down here on the bottom, it's going to stop sticking as much. It's actually going to start to pick that up and bring it up and into your onions here. Add a little bit of garlic. Now garlic has a tendency to burn, so I tend to hold off on that for a little bit. So I like to put it in a little bit later, just so it's going to have less time on the heat. It's going to have less time to burn on me. All right. So let me deglaze again. So I'm not sure if you saw that, but it actually kind of did ignite a little bit there. So just being mindful that that can happen. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to be fine. But yeah. So I'm going to add the rest of like another tablespoon of that butter, and I'm just going to leave that alone. Yeah, looking good there. I want to add a little bit of pepper. Probably enough on the chicken, but whatever. All fun and games here. There we are. Alright, and then I'm going to toss in these guys. Maybe even throw my herbs back in there just so it imparts more of that flavor on there. If you want to, you can actually reuse this fat at this point. Kind of give it more of a better sauce base. Oh, I did not pick up everything off there. So, I'm going to have to deglaze again. That's alright. It's the fun part, right? I'm giving it a minute because I want to put it on high and get some fire going. Woohoo! And again, I'm just kind of giving a little bit of caramelization, softening up these mushrooms a little bit to make it for a very, very nice sauce here. Do this. And once that kind of reduces again, then I'm going to add my chicken stock to this. Alright, so most of the alcohol is burnt off at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and add my chicken stock. That's about a cup here. And again, I have never, for this particular recipe, I've never actually added any thickener to it. I kind of just let it reduce down. Okay. I think it's a little bit more vegetable stock than I usually use, but that's alright. So if you wanted to add a thickener, you could use a cornstarch or you could use flour. I probably personally prefer flour, and I probably wouldn't use more than like a tablespoon or two in water or in your chicken stock if the chicken stock is starting off cold. And I'm just going to go ahead and let this come here. I'll turn this down to low and just kind of let it thicken here for a while. So in a little while, I'm going to go ahead and have my pull my chicken out of the oven. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the veggies and all that. I'm going to put that on the bottom of my plate, and then I'm going to stack my chicken on top, and then pour my sauce and my mushrooms and all that right on the top there. Now, I did pull this out of the oven right as we began, and I think I've covered this once before, but I'm going to go ahead and cover it again. When it comes to cutting bread, I'm going to wait for it to cool down a little bit, because if I try to start to cut this when it's really hot, it's going to just fall apart on me. And I can't guarantee that this is going to be successful right now. But the technique that I like is when I'm going this direction, especially actually, I'm going to start on this side because it's going to be harder. So you see that this bread has this big ridge right here. That's where your bread's going to fall apart here. So when I come into it, I'm using an upstroke, right, on this side, so that I'm pushing this ridge into the middle there. So I'm basically using the knife to bring the bread back together, and then I'm going to lift up, and then I'm going to draw upward, down, up, down, and then slice through, right? So if you don't want to, especially with bread, you don't want to be using downward pressure to create the cut, right? Because you're just going to smush your bread. So I'm using the serrated edge on this to kind of get this going. So you see, I'm starting to push the bread out and I'm causing a little bit of mess there, so I'm going to pull upward, down, up, down, up, down, up. And you can see the slice actually maintained its shape pretty nicely. But you can see here that my sauce has actually reduced quite a bit, and that's probably about where I want it. I don't necessarily want it any thinner than that. I have added no thickeners to it. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a little bit of taste, and this is the point where if you're going to add salt, this is the time I would do it. And frankly, that doesn't need it. It has plenty of salt in it. So I decided here, in the minute that we were gone, that I wasn't content to just do the sourdough bread and show you how to cut it. I'm going to actually do a garlic bread here. And for the garlic bread, I actually do use dried onions, and these are just chopped dried onions. I kind of prefer more of a granulated onion or something along those lines. I will then also use my mixed herbs. For this, I do tend to prefer the the dried herbs over fresh in this particular case. Smoked paprika, Cheater's garlic, and butter. So, because it is a butter bread, and really the point of the butter is to actually move the flavors from the garlic and everything around and into my bread. So, it's about 2-3 tablespoons right there. It's probably not all going to go into it, but you know, whatever. Cheater's garlic. And frankly, like, for me, I still like to use fresh garlic or Cheater's garlic. But you can use powdered. I don't like how it turns out with powdered. I actually like that kind of fresh garlic flavor in there. And so, toss that in there. And now, the thing is that when it comes to garlic bread, I actually tend to finish it off in the oven, right, with a high broil, but you have to be really, really careful. Preferably having your pan be relatively close to the heating element is actually relatively advantageous for this. At this point, like if I wanted to have more oil so that I get more that the bread will pick up, I'll go ahead and use my avocado oil, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of that. I don't think I'll put my herbs in there. Not going to hurt it. So, got my garlic. I can see my garlic. I'm pretty sure I put my onions in. But I'm going to add more just in case. Because really, the dried onions, I think that's one of the things that actually adds so much more flavor to this than just garlic alone. And it took me years to kind of figure that out. That was kind of the secret for me that really, really opened this up. So, you can just drop your bread in here and wait for it to toast here. And then you're done. I tend to find that like the bread doesn't get as warm and you are more prone to maybe burning it, and it also gets more greasy that way. So I tend to like the broiling method. But now that I don't need this, let's go ahead and put this away. And I'm going to check on my chicken. Alright. So different ways that you can check meat once it's cooked is you can do the push test, right? So when it comes to that, and I don't remember if I actually posted the steak video, but if you press on your cheek, that's going to be the feeling that rare is going to be. Your chin is going to be closer to like a medium rare. Your forehead is going to be very, very well done. And, you know, back of your hand also works, or, you know, this area is pretty like medium rare-ish. Like, so you can go on different parts of your body to kind of get a gauge. Not that you need a lot of options, right? And so I'm looking for this to be 165, I believe. So right now, this chicken's done, right? And so at this point in time, like that's one way you can do it. You can do the push test. For chicken, you're going to want it to be kind of closer to that well done. So it's going to be relatively firm. I feel this is like medium well, right? And that's perfectly fine because as it sits out on the counter, it's going to continue to cook. So, well, so you see that's kind of my issue with doing it in the pan is you see that the garlic and the onion are starting to burn. So I'm going to move that off the pan, and I'm going to do what I normally put it to itself on a baking sheet, and then when I have my oven free, I can turn on my broiler and then finish this off in the oven. Which I don't see a reason why I can't do that. I'll just move stuff down. So turn on my broiler onto high. Boom. And I'm going to move my veggies down to the bottom rack because I don't think they're quite done yet. And I can go ahead and just throw this right in there. Alright? So, again, this is because in the pan it's just the garlic and onions tend to burn. Sometimes you can get away with it, but generally speaking, I like to finish off in the oven. Okay guys, I totally caved because it wasn't cooking fast enough and I boiled my veggies. I haven't really had problems in the past with this particular one, but in this case it just wasn't working. So, I'm going to go ahead and plate these up. I tend to be really generous when it comes to my veggies because I think that, you know, that's what's going to keep your colon working properly. And I also just kind of like veggies, so here we go. Chicken on top. So that's it. Now we're going to go over here. We're going to take our sauce here. Now, as I mentioned before, this tends to come out a little bit salty in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spoon half of this onto here. Mine, half on the jets. Nice little covering there. And then I'm going to use these, I think they're Spanish in origin. Let's see, what are these guys? I've told you guys before, but these are sweet red Peruvian peppers. So I'm just going to put a little bit on top here, just because I wanted to add a little bit of sweetness to what was going on here. And also just makes it look a little bit better, don't you agree? Alright, and then some of that burnt garlic will come off there. Some bread. And there we are, guys. That's all there is to this one. Hope you guys enjoyed, and try it out. See you next time.